The dream of most people is simple: to have money without having to rely on a job. But is it really possible to get rich without looking for work? The answer is yes, and it has nothing to do with lucky breaks or empty promises. Because true wealth isn't born from endless sweat in an office, but from something deeper: mindset, habits, and strategic decisions. Think about this. While millions spend their lives working for a salary that barely covers their expenses, others, with the same number of hours a day, build assets that generate income even while they sleep. The difference isn't luck, it's the system. And today, I'm going to show you those foolproof steps so you too can learn how to get rich without looking for work. Before continuing, I want to ask you an honest question. Have you ever felt like you work hard, but it's never enough? If so, write the word abundance in the comments, because today we'll begin to program your mind to attract it. This isn't just another video. It's a map with 10 lessons that will forever change the way you view money and, most importantly, your relationship with it. If you apply what you're about to hear, you won't have to chase wealth, because wealth will start chasing you. Take a deep breath. The journey begins now. Lesson 1. Wealth is born in your mind, not in your pocketbook. Most people believe that wealth begins when one receives a large salary, inherits a fortune, or wins the lottery. However, history proves time and again that this is not true. There are thousands of documented cases of millionaire prize winners who, in less than 5 years, returned to absolute poverty. The reason? They weren't mentally prepared to sustain that abundance. Poverty and wealth aren't just numbers in a bank account, they're states of mind. If your internal programming is filled with phrases like, "Money is bad," "It's never enough," "The rich always exploit the poor," then no matter how much you earn, you'll always return to the same point: lack. According to a Stanford University study, 80% of people who manage to maintain a stable financial situation throughout their lives acknowledge that the first thing they worked on was their mindset regarding money. On the other hand, 70% of those who receive large sums of money without psychological preparation end up losing everything. This teaches us a compelling truth. Money doesn't change who you are. It only amplifies what you already are internally. Imagine two people receiving the same sum of $100,000. One person with a scarcity mindset will see it as an opportunity to spend, indulge in immediate luxuries, and brag. The other person with a prosperity mindset will see it as a seed. Part will invest, part will save, and part will use it strategically to generate more. Both received the same amount, but the result will be radically different in 10 years. Millionaires are not defined by what they own, but by what they think. Their minds are trained to see opportunities where others see obstacles. While most say, "It's very difficult," they ask, "How can I achieve it?" That small mental difference opens doors that seem impossible. Write in the comments, "I am prosperous and I attract wealth," to begin reprogramming your subconscious today. Remember, your wallet only reflects what your mind decides to sow. If your thoughts are abundant, your life will be abundant. Lesson 2. Never follow the crowd. We live in a world where the majority follows the same script: study, get a job, receive a salary, and hope that retirement will arrive in years to come. This model was created during the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century, when obedient workers were needed, not free thinkers. The problem is that this system no longer guarantees security or abundance in the 21st century. According to the International Labor Organization, 90% of the world's people earn their income solely by exchanging time for money. In other words, they work longer hours to earn more, but they never manage to break that cycle. And what do true wealth creators do? They build systems, businesses, investments, assets that generate income even while they sleep. A simple example would be, a person with a poverty mentality buys a new car on credit because they deserve it. A person with a wealth mentality uses that same money as a down payment to buy a small apartment, rents it out, and uses that cash to pay for their own car. In one case, the money disappears. In the other, the money starts working for you. Robert Kiyosaki explains this in his book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The rich buy assets. The poor and middle class buy liabilities, believing them to be assets. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket. A liability is something that takes it out. While the masses spend on liabilities, the rich create chains of assets that eventually become empires. According to a Credit Suisse report, the richest 1% of the planet controls more than 45% of the world's wealth. And it's not because they work longer hours, but because they've learned to build and own systems that consistently produce value. If your goal is financial freedom, you must ask yourself a powerful question. Do I want to be an employee of money or an owner of money? This doesn't mean you should quit your job immediately, but rather that you should begin redirecting some of your energy toward building something that will grow even when you're not around. A digital business, a smart investment, a rental property, a personal brand, any of these can be the beginning of your independence. The path of the crowd promises you security, but in reality, it delivers dependence. The path of freedom demands courage, but it opens the door to true abundance. Lesson 3. Time is your most valuable asset. Lost money can be recovered. A bad investment can be reversed. Even bankruptcy can be overcome. But there's one asset that, once spent, never returns: your time. The most common mistake of those who don't prosper is believing that time is infinite. They spend hours scrolling through social media, caught up in distractions, consuming instead of creating. They don't realize that those hours are the most valuable currency they have. A surprising fact confirms this. According to Vanguard, a person who invests $200 a month in an index fund from age 20 could accumulate more than $1 million by age 65 thanks to compound interest. And what happens if that same person starts at 30? With the same monthly amount, their result drops by almost half, around $400,000. The difference isn't in the money invested, but in the time spent. Compound interest, called the eighth wonder of the world by Albert Einstein, rewards those who understand that every day counts, and it punishes those who believe there will be time later. Every year you delay a financial decision, you don't just lose 12 months, you lose decades of accumulated growth. It's like planting a tree. If you do it today, it will bear shade and fruit in 20 years. If you postpone it for 10 years, no matter how hard you try, you'll never have the same results. The rich aren't necessarily smarter or harder working than others. The difference is that they value their hours like pure gold. A successful entrepreneur understands that an hour of reading a good book, designing a strategy, or creating a system is worth infinitely more than an hour in front of the television. While some use their time to distract themselves from the present, true wealth creators invest it in designing the future. Lost money can be earned back. Time, never. Therefore, every minute you decide to invest in knowledge, in valuable relationships, in building assets, is a minute that multiplies in your financial life. Declare it with me and write it in the comments. I accept success and happiness in my life. Because consciously accepting that your time is sacred is the first step to multiplying your wealth. Lesson 4. Discipline is worth more than talent. In wealth building, talent can open a door for you, but discipline is what allows you to keep it open. You don't need to be a genius to become rich. What you really need is an iron commitment to your financial habits and decisions. The world is full of brilliant people who died poor. Engineers, artists, inventors, even international award winners who never learned to control their emotions or manage what they had. Why? Because they confused ability with perseverance. According to the U.S. Federal Reserve, 40% of American households couldn't cover an unexpected $400 expense without going into debt. This isn't due to a lack of talent. Many of these people have education, stable jobs, and skills. The problem lies in a lack of financial discipline, spending before saving, going into debt to impress, not setting aside a fixed percentage for investment. Wealth isn't measured by how much you earn, but by how much you keep, invest, and multiply. In fact, a study by Fidelity Investments showed that more than 60% of self-made millionaires never earned their fortune through extraordinary salaries, but rather through consistency and disciplined saving, followed by strategic investments. A simple example illustrates this. If a person earns $10,000 a month but spends $9,800, they barely save $200. Another person earns $3,000 a month but saves and invests $1,000 and can financially surpass the former in 10 years. The difference isn't talent, but control. The real enemy of financial growth isn't a lack of opportunity, but the inability to postpone immediate gratification. Discipline is that internal muscle that allows you to say, "I don't need to spend this today, because tomorrow it will be more valuable if I invest it." That single decision, repeated hundreds of times, is what builds fortunes. Discipline is the bridge that connects your dreams to your financial reality. Talent can inspire you, but only perseverance will take you to the end. Lesson 5. Don't become a slave to consumption. We live in a society designed to keep us in an endless cycle of spending. Every year, new cell phone models appear that we don't need, clothes we wear only once or twice, and trips financed with credit cards that we end up paying off for years. And although these objects give us momentary pleasure, the result is always the same: debt, anxiety, and invisible chains that bind us to our work routine. A World Bank study indicates that more than 60% of adults in Latin America have some type of consumer debt. Most of it isn't for investment or building assets, but rather to cover current expenses and passing whims. The problem isn't in wanting things, but in confusing consumption with investment. The rich don't buy to impress, they buy to multiply. While the average person goes into debt to buy the latest model car, an investor uses that same money as capital for a business or an asset that generates cash flow. Imagine you receive an extra $1,000. The consumer spends it on clothes, technology, or a trip that will be forgotten within weeks. The investor puts it in an index fund with an average annual return of 8%. In 20 years, that amount becomes more than $4,600. The difference is simple. The former buys fleeting memories, the latter buys future freedom. Marketing makes us believe that luxury is having expensive objects. But true luxury is having options, choosing where to live, how to work, what to do with your time. And those options don't come from consumption, they come from investment. Therefore, before spending on what you want, invest in what you create. Buy assets, not ornaments. Build freedom, not appearances. And to reinforce this, write in the comments, "I accept success, money, and happiness in my life." Because when you program your mind to prioritize creation over consumption, you are taking the most powerful step toward true financial independence. Lesson 6. Patience is the mother of wealth. Did you know that 70% of lottery winners lose all their money in less than 5 years? This fact is no coincidence. The reason is simple. They weren't mentally prepared to manage abundance. Quick money tends to disappear as quickly as it arrives. Why? Because without financial education, discipline, and a vision for the future, money is not an ally, but a silent enemy that amplifies mistakes. True wealth is not measured by how much you receive all at once, but by what you build with patience, perseverance, and strategy. Look at the difference. $1 million inheritance in the hands of someone without preparation can disappear in months. On the other hand, someone who invests patiently for 20 or 30 years can leave a legacy that lasts for generations. For example, someone who invests $500 a month in an index fund with an average annual return of 8% would accumulate more than $750,000 in 30 years. This isn't about luck or chance, but rather long-term vision. Financial psychology studies have shown that people who learn to delay immediate gratification tend to accumulate more wealth and stability. Patience is a muscle that is trained every time you choose to invest instead of spend, to learn instead of being distracted, to wait instead of rushing. Wealth is like a tree. No matter how much you water it on the first day, it will still take years to bear fruit. Those who understand this never despair, because they know that every financial decision today is a seed that will yield abundance tomorrow. Lesson 7. Surround yourself with millionaire minds. Your circle is your mirror. The people you spend the most time with shape your way of thinking, your habits, and even your financial results. If your environment is filled with complaints, criticism, and a scarcity mentality, sooner or later you'll end up adopting those same patterns. But if you surround yourself with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and people who talk about projects instead of problems, your own life will inevitably begin to grow. A study conducted by Harvard University revealed a fascinating fact. The average person's financial standing is usually the same as that of their 5 closest friends. This means that if all your friends are in debt, spend more than they earn, and live without clear goals, chances are you're trapped in the same dynamic. But if your circle includes people who invest, who seek growth, who talk about business, innovation, and freedom, your financial standards will inevitably rise. Imagine 2 young people with the same starting salary. The first hangs out with friends who party hard, spending money on clothes and technology. 5 years later, they have debt and 0 savings. The second surrounds themselves with entrepreneurs, attends financial talks, and learns from mentors. 5 years later, they already have investments in an index fund, a small online business, and savings that multiply their security. Your environment doesn't just influence you, it defines the speed of your growth. Our habits, beliefs, and even our financial language are shaped by what we hear and observe. Therefore, if you want to change your financial future, sometimes the first step isn't changing jobs, but changing circles. Surround yourself with people who are already where you want to be. Learn from them. Listen to how they think, how they make decisions, how they see opportunities that others overlook. Because greatness is contagious, as is mediocrity. Lesson 8. Own your decisions. The victim mentality is the enemy of prosperity. The poor blame the government, the economy, inflation, their parents, or even luck. The rich, on the other hand, take full responsibility for their lives because they understand that blaming others is giving away power. Anyone who says, "I can't," is already defeated. Anyone who says, "How can I?" activates their creativity, expands their vision, and opens up a range of possibilities. That simple change of one word can completely transform your financial path. For example, "I can't save" is different from "How can I save even 5% of my income?" "I can't invest" is different from "How can I start investing with only $50 a month?" "I can't start a business" is different from "How can I generate an additional source of income without quitting my current job?" Statistics support this truth. According to a report by the U.S. Federal Reserve, 40% of households cannot cover an unexpected expense of $400. But those who start with small financial decisions, saving a little each month, investing in their education, or building an emergency fund, manage to break out of that 40% in less than 5 years. The difference? It wasn't the economy, it wasn't luck, it was their decisions. When you understand that everything you have today is the result of your past choices, something powerful happens. You no longer wait for the world to change, you decide to change yourself. And with every conscious decision, even a small one, you are shaping your future wealth. Remember, no one becomes financially free by playing the victim. Only those who declare themselves the creators of their destiny can build an empire, even starting from scratch. Now write in the comments, "I am the creator of my fortune." Do it with conviction, because every time you affirm it, your mind understands that the key to your prosperity is in your hands and no one else's. Lesson 9. Trust is the invisible currency of the rich. No one builds wealth alone.
Great financial empires were not built solely on money, but on credibility. An investor doesn't put their capital in the hands of someone who doesn't inspire confidence, no matter how promising the business. Consider this. Jeff Bezos, when he founded Amazon in 1994, barely managed to raise $1 million in seed capital. He did so not because he had a proven business, in fact, it was a risky idea, but because he conveyed vision and confidence. That initial million allowed him to build what is now worth more than $1.5 trillion. Studies by the Edelman Trust Barometer firm reveal that 88% of people trust transparent brands and leaders more than those who only show numbers. This means that in the financial world, your word and your reputation can be worth more than your bank account. A millionaire can go bankrupt and be left with nothing, but if they keep their reputation intact, they'll soon find investors, partners, and opportunities to get back on their feet. In fact, a Stanford University study shows that bankrupt entrepreneurs with a solid reputation rebuild their businesses 3 times faster than those without credibility. Therefore, in the money game, trust is your invisible currency. Your ability to deliver on your promises, your ability to be transparent, and your ethics when managing resources are the pillars that sustain your long-term growth. Remember, money is temporary. Trust, if you cultivate it, is eternal. Lesson 10. Make money a means, not an end. Money is not the ultimate goal. It's a tool, a bridge to freedom, experiences, and legacy. When your only goal is to accumulate, emptiness will come, because bills alone don't fill the soul. But when your purpose is to create, serve, and leave a mark, wealth becomes an inevitable companion, not the protagonist of your life. According to a Princeton University study, money positively impacts happiness up to $75,000 a year. Beyond that threshold, what truly generates satisfaction isn't having more, but giving your life more meaning. This is the difference between the truly wealthy and those who only pretend. The former uses money to build businesses, help others, and generate freedom. The latter uses money to consume, show off, and fill temporary voids. Think of this analogy. Money is like electricity. By itself, it means nothing. But with vision and purpose, it can light up an entire city. The question is, do you want money to be your master or your tool? When you choose the latter, you don't run after it, you attract it. Write in the comments and declare, I accept success, money, and happiness in my life. Now you know. True wealth doesn't begin in the bank, but in your mind. It's a reflection of what you think, what you decide, what you believe is possible. You are not a victim of money. You are the architect of your financial destiny. And remember, every thought is a seed. Sow abundance and you will reap abundance. If this resonated with you, it's because you're ready for the next message. Subscribe and join me on this path to prosperity, because the best is just beginning.